Hey, welcome to Wicked Iron. Today I'm talking about airbrushing and what it takes to get started. Just basic introduction if you haven't done it before and you're interested in it. One thing you're going to need is a small compressor. Well, you don't need a small one, but I like a nice small quiet compressor with a little tank. It's got builds up the air supply so it can turn off. It's not very loud. It's got a water catcher and a pressure gauge so you know what you're spraying. You'll need the hose, and then at the end of the hose, obviously the airbrush. You also need paint and something to spray on too. Things I found that to make my life easier are the quick disconnect and several different airbrushes. Right now, this one here is a master. It's a pretty cheap one. I know the pros are going to be laughing. Hey, why didn't you spend your money on Iwata or whatever? For me, I don't do fine art illustration. I spray with shields and a lot of freehand stuff. So as long as it gets good atomization, it's good enough for my needs. And as of what I consider a beginner, it's cost effective, and you can buy like a 6-pack for under $100. So the reason for the quick disconnect is so you can use several different airbrushes at a time. You don't have to clean them out. You don't have to switch them out. It's also good to have a good stand. I prefer this one. It's got 4. It's usually I'm only working with 1 or 2 colors at a time. So it gives me enough that I can do, if I'm doing fire, I'll have like a white for a base, red, orange, and yellow. So the reason I kind of push for a cheaper airbrush to start with especially is because, if you bend the needle or something, it's not so expensive to replace. As you're learning to use it, sometimes you can touch. With these, I could buy a 6-pack, and they're cheaper than the expensive one. They get decent atomization, and for the most part, I'm not a freehand airbrusher. I use shields and sometimes stencils. Some guys say that that's an evil word, but I don't think so. There's some great stencils to get you started, to get you a base. I cut my own. Usually I might go off somebody else's picture or something along that, but I adjust it to my style and do that. Now, as far as the atomization goes, as long as you get a good fine atomization, which depends on the quality of your paint, how you thin your paint, how you mix your paint, how you keep your guns clean, that's the important part. The fine details, a lot of it will come with time. So unless you are already an artist and you're really great at it, I recommend starting with a cheaper airbrush. Here are a couple of examples of shirts that I've done in the past. The bottom you can see I did freehand, quick, no shields. Just trying to be an example of what to do without the shields and how it turns out, especially at like a beginner stage. The top one, I cut out stencils. I used shields, different shapes for the teeth to get the clearer details. My cheaper airbrushes get decent lines for the cracks. Here I have another old skull that I did mostly freehand. The flames don't really show up in this video. This is pretty old. It looks like it has water been sprayed on it. It's been sitting in my basement for several years. And then I have my first skull that I ever really did on glass. I believe I've come a long way since then. Along with skulls, I've tried to do some eagles and American flags waving. You can get in there, you can kind of see some of the technique. Still got to work on my proportion. The beak looks a little bit off. There's a lot that I see. But I ended up, the threads, if you look, that is not done with airbrush. That was painted on afterwards with a toothpick. One of the tricks that are used. Here I have an old Harley tank that I did. It was done with the crinkle technique. It's been sanded since, and it needs to be repainted. It's pretty rough now. I bought a bunch of Harley tanks just for practice. Cheap ones off of eBay. If they had small dents in them or something, and then I fix them up and then practice on them. So as a beginner, these are some of the projects that I've done with the cheaper airbrushes over the years. I have bought a couple of, I believe, Extreme Patriot by Badger, and there was one other real nice one, more expensive. I haven't even tried them out yet. I haven't gotten to a project where I feel I need to break them out. So far, the old ones have worked. They've lasted for years. You can get replacement parts if they wear out. So get out there and paint something.